honestly just celebration of democracy. And it is my pleasure to introduce Jenny Laughlin. She is the president of the Richardson Area Democrats. So please help me in welcoming her.
Well, good afternoon. It's good to see you. I can kind of see you. Boy, I'm not a stage person, so I didn't know this was going to be what it looked like being in the lights. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming. I am Jenny Laughlin. I'm with Richardson Area Democrats. I'm the president, and I am very thankful to all of you for coming, and thank you, Ariana, for that nice introduction. We are honored to be joined by these candidates, and despite the extra work that a primary entails, we are fortunate to have candidates who care enough to run. I want to thank our co-hosts, first of all, the Student Government Association of Dallas College, Richland Branch. You guys, they did such a great job of getting this put together. I appreciate them so much for all the work and this facility and just making this so easy. I want to thank especially Kelly Sonnenstein. She's with the student government, and I'm sorry I don't know exactly what her title is, but she was especially helpful to me, not only in this preparation, but also in CD 32. Thank you so much, Kelly. I also want to take a minute to acknowledge all our co-sponsors who helped spread the word and bring out the people today. Progress Texas and Kathleen Thompson was great in helping us publicize this. Thank you to them and for all the work that they do. Preston Hollow Democrats also, thank you, Catherine. And your team, thank you so much. Lake Highland White Rock Democrats were also very helpful. Thank you, guys. The Funky East Dallas Democrats also helped us this time. Thank you so much for your help. Stonewall Democrats of Dallas also was great. Thank you. And thank you to my board. The board of directors for RAD. You guys are so supportive to help us get here, go along with all the crazy ideas that I have. 3 debates in 9 days is nuts. Just that, in case you're ever wondering why there aren't very many debates locally, it's kind of crazy to do them. But I'm glad that they supported me, and especially Preston, who is up in the booth running our video that we're live streaming to YouTube today. And Derek Gay for helping me with the candidate liaison. He has been great getting everything organized there. And thank you all for coming. Today is to help us choose who will be supporting in these races. And I wonder, how many of you already know who you are going to be supporting? Give me a clap. All right. How many of you are undecided? Okay. Well, we hope that by the end of this, I'm going to ask you again if you changed your mind or if you made a decision. So enjoy the debate. We're going to start with Senate District 16, and I'm going to introduce our moderator, who is Kendall Scudder. He is the Vice Chair for Finance of Texas Democratic Party and host of the Pod Bless Texas. I always want to say Pod Save. Pod's Bless Texas podcast. And there he is. And I will let him take over. Thank you.
Hi, how are ya? Thank you guys so much for coming out. We had a very intense bout of rock, paper, scissors backstage to decide who would go first. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm just absolutely tickled to be here. Before I kind of lay out what the guidelines are, I want to make sure we get our candidates out on stage first. So we'll go ahead and start with Representative Victoria Niave Criado and State Senator Nathan Johnson. And yes, have a seat. Two buddies of mine. I've been able to be on the campaign trail with both of them, and so excited to see you both here today. Thank y'all for joining us. The way that we're going to format things today is we're going to go through and ask questions. You'll have 2 minutes to respond. Then the next person will have 2 minutes to respond to that response. And then the person who was initially given the question will have a 30-second rebuttal. And then we want to make sure that each other has an opportunity to respond if their name is mentioned. So we're going to give a 30-second opportunity for people to respond if time runs up, or we need to make sure we allocate that fairly. So that'll be done at discretion. So, in the important game of rock, paper, scissors that happened backstage, Nathan Johnson did paper and he won. He beat rock. Womp womp, right? And so Nathan got to decide whether or not he wanted to go first or second on the first question, and he chose second. So the first question that we're going to have today is going to go to Representative Niave Criado, and let's just dive right into it. Oh, yes, sir. Oh, yeah, you're right. That's a really good point. Do y'all want to be moderators? Because you can, no, they made up a good point that I left out the fact that they're both going to get opening statements, 2 minutes to open. And if time permits at the end of today, we're going to give them closing statements as well. But if time doesn't permit, we're going to go ahead and scrap that so we can move it. So let's do opening statements then. And so we'll go ahead and start with Representative Niave Criado.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and Kendall and Senator Johnson and all of you for coming today on a Saturday. I'd love to share a little bit about my background. I was born and raised here in Dallas. I'm the daughter of an immigrant dad and a strong Tejana mom who emphasized to me the importance of education and focusing on school. I grew up in Pleasant Grove and it took me about an hour north to Ursuline Academy of Dallas. My parents scraped and saved. And so one of the big issues for me is the importance of education, because the quality of your education should not be determined based on the zip code in which you live, and which is why we fought so hard against Governor Abbott's voucher scam, and very honored to be a part of the House majority along with my House Democratic colleague, Representative Ana Maria Ramos, where we killed vouchers in the Texas House. I am an attorney. One of the big things that I focus on in the Texas legislature are issues that disproportionately impact women. We are severely underrepresented in the Texas House and the Senate for years, and so my legislation, from my very first bill to a lot of the big bills that I have passed, have focused on the rape kit backlog, domestic violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment. My Lavinia Masters Act that I passed got $50 million from the Texas budget. I named it after a woman named Lavinia who was 13 when somebody crawled through her window and raped her at knife point. She then went to obtain a sexual assault exam, and her rape kit sat untested on a shelf for more than 20 years. 20 years before it finally got tested. So I created a local sexual violence task force with subject matter experts, the DA's office, rape survivors, SANE nurses, to come up with multiple legislative solutions, and I filed and passed a lot of bills to address this. I also worked, and since then, since our bill has been passed, we have had thousands and thousands of untested kits now tested, bringing long overdue justice. Oh, thank you. Is there a timer somewhere that we can?
I don't see a timer. I'm gonna consult with the organizers of the Jenny. Let's proceed with closing statements the same way while they're figuring that out, if that's okay, Senator Johnson. And so you'll have 2 minutes to give your introduction.
we have to fight. There is so much at stake, and there are multiple reasons why I'm running, but this district was substantially redrawn. It is over 49% people of color, or over 70% people of color, 49% Latino, and we started watching the votes of the incumbent with all due respect to him, and I want to bring a different voice and we have to fight with everything that we have. So I want to bring a choice to Democrats about the type of leadership that we want and whether we're okay with the current leadership or are we ready to step up our game, because there are so many fights right now. Individuals are being terrorized by Governor Abbott, Ken Paxton, women who are having to travel out of state to obtain reproductive health care. We have a governor saying that people on the border, he's doing everything except murdering individuals. And I know that we'll get into some of these issues, so I want to be respectful of the time, but I'm happy to dig into those in a little bit.
Thank you very much. And Senator Johnson, we'll give you 3 minutes.
I'll try to take 2. Thank you all for taking this very, very serious election so very, very seriously enough to be here on a Saturday. You know, we're coming up on 3 years to the day when Winter Storm Uri devastated the state with temperatures and conditions never before seen in Texas history. And the grid failed, as you all know. You all suffered the trauma. Some people were without power for 4 days. Some of you were without power for 0 days. I never lost power. Some people died. People lost their homes, $200 billion in insurance damage. It turned this state upside down, and the energy capital of the world was embarrassed before the world because people died, businesses failed, and homes were lost. I got to work right away to think, we cannot tolerate the energy capital of the world unable to keep an oxygen machine turned on, or a nursing home with power, or water towers from freezing. And I set to work with national experts in energy, and we developed a system of backup power distributed statewide to make sure that water towers don't freeze, that police can still get to you in an emergency, that nursing homes don't fail, that hospitals have power, that TDEM can get to emergency routes when they need to. And I passed it out of the Senate against all expectations. And we got it into the House and passed it and got $2 billion to deploy these things. Whether we're working on the grid that accommodate our emergencies or can accommodate us for the next 50 years, we're working on Medicaid expansion, an area where I've led the state for the past 6 years. It is the greatest privilege in the world to wake up every morning caring about what you do, and to go to bed every night caring about what you do, and work with great people who care about what we're doing, and it matters. It makes a difference because we are charged, and having been in office now for 3 sessions, I've seen that those efforts are not moot. We actually are making a difference. And because I'm now burdened with the knowledge that change is possible, I want to keep doing it. I want to make sure that the future that we are building for this state is worthy of the pride that we have in our state and worthy of our kids staying here, coming here, choosing to live here, and growing the strength and influence of the Democratic Party so we're not just playing defense. We can and must be effective in our attacks, in our defense. We've also got to make sure that we are pushing forward our vision for this state. That's why I want to go back there. That's why I greatly appreciate you being here and engaged in this process, and ask for your support in returning to office. Thank you.
Now we're going to dive into questions. Great intros, guys. Y'all knocked it out of the park. Okay, the first question that we're going to have for y'all today, this one is going to be directed at Representative Niavi Criado. It pertains to education. So Texas public schools comprise a large majority of the budget of the state of Texas. Despite a record $33 billion surplus, Texas schools once again maintain their funding shortage. And a story in the Dallas Morning News on Monday exposed that Texas schools are set to lose another $300 million in Medicaid funding for children with special needs. What in your legislative track record would indicate that Democrats can trust you more than your opponent on improving public school funding?
Thank you so much for that question. I have been fighting for more funding for our schools. We know we have teachers who are working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. We have the dollars. It's a matter of legislative priorities for the Texas legislature to invest these funds into our neighborhood schools. The majority of the students in Texas public schools are diverse students of color, and we need to make sure that they are getting every tool and access to the best resources because we want them to graduate high school and go on to college. I'm a first-generation college graduate. I graduated here from UT Dallas. I attended Dallas College colleges, community colleges. So I want to thank the students that are here and that helped organize this. I was also in student government at UT Dallas, and so we have to continue to shine a spotlight on the real lived experiences of what a lot of students are, first generation, but we have to invest in our schools. We fought in the House with everything that we had to try to protect our schools against Governor Abbott's voucher scams. This year, I also chair the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. We are the largest and oldest Latino caucus in the country, and the reason I share that is because we led the fight on so many of Governor Abbott's attacks against all of us. When it came to vouchers, and with all due respect to Nathan, to the senator, and while he may have voted for against certain bills at the time, when vouchers came to the Senate in the fourth called special session, we were there doing everything that we could to fight that bill, to kill it in the House. When that bill came to the Senate, Nathan Johnson was absent on the day that vouchers came, on Thursday, November 9th, leaving the residents of Senate District 16 without a vote. And so it's a matter of showing up. It's a matter of being there. We have done everything from filed legislation. I got an amendment onto House Bill 3, which now requires students to fill out the FAFSA and as a graduation requirement. Oh, I see my time is up.
Senator Johnson.
The first thing we can do to make sure that we have funding in our public schools is to make sure that public school dollars go to our public schools, not vouchers, which is why I kind of got in trouble on the Senate floor when I called the legislators irresponsible, spiteful, disrespectful, and misguided when they introduced vouchers onto the omnibus education bill. Part of that omnibus education bill were some bills that I filed. The best thing we can do for education funding is to index it to inflation and put more money into what we call the basic allotment. The basic allotment is the amount of money that the state gives to school districts using some property tax dollars, some state dollars, every year for each student. The basic allotment was changed in 2019. It was raised. It was a big deal. It was also reconfigured. It is designed so that if we dump some water into that, it actually goes to the places it can be most useful. Not just a general budget, but there are different populations that have different needs and programs that need more money. The basic allotment is a brilliant way to do it because it took years and years and years of education experts getting together to devise. I know I talked with them when I filed this bill to index the basic allotment to inflation, which if we had done it would have resulted in $15 billion more dollars going into public education and $4,000 pay raises for teachers. In addition, we should be basing our funding on enrollment, not attendance. Attendance fluctuates, enrollment does not. That way teachers and school districts have predictability with their funding. Third, we got to treat teachers with respect. That's why when a pregnant teacher came to me and said, I don't have paid parental leave, I said, you should. And I filed the bill to have paid parental leave. And when I learned that teachers can't afford to be teachers because they have little kids that they got to put in daycare, why don't they have free pre-K? So I filed a bill for that too. Some of that found its way into the big education bill, which got killed by vouchers, which was when I called them out on the floor and got in trouble. In 10 seconds, was I present for the fourth or whatever voucher vote? No, that was November 9th when the legislature had never been in session. I had a 6-month work commitment. I had to be out of town. It's true, I missed the vote. I've also filed this legislation, opposed vouchers, always have.
Thank you. And Representative, you'll have 30 seconds now to wrap that line of question up.
Absolutely. Our schools, our education is the biggest issue facing our state. Our Texas economy and the success of our Texas economy is directly intertwined with the success of our students. I want to make sure that our teachers have all of the tools that they need, that they have the resources, that we are investing in our schools instead of taking dollars away. We had fights in the Texas House when we had big property tax bills coming up. We were trying to get funding for our schools while tax breaks were being given on property taxes because we had the funding there. And the fact is, we have to fight with everything that we have. We can't be absent for whatever reason. We have to be there every single time.
Thank you. Okay. Our next question is directed towards Senator Johnson. Senator Johnson, in October, you cast a vote in favor of SB 4, a racial profiling bill that is being challenged by Democrats as being unconstitutional. That grants a 10-year sentence for having an undocumented person in your vehicle, even if it's a family member. Why should Democratic primary voters in a state where the governor is in a near constant standoff with the president on border security look to you for leadership on a more humane approach to immigration?
Well, the first thing we should do is understand that this question is largely tracking what people have said, including my opponent, and it's false. There were 5 SB4s last year, because there were 5 sessions, a regular and a special. 1 SB4 in the 4th special session is one you're referring to. It's a yucky, wretched racial profiling bill. It came up 3 times prior. It was, I think, 2024, SB2 and SB11, and if you check the record, you'll see my vote no, no, and no. I have never, ever voted for a racial profiling bill. If you'll check my comments on the Senate floor and in social media, I have always opposed the backwards, regressive, unproductive, inhumane, cruel, and ineffective policies by Abbott and his administration. The vote that I did cast was for human trafficking, and it is not a crime of driving somebody who is unauthorized. By the way, this bill's been in effect for 24 years. The bill was not a new bill to pull someone over. In fact, it contained no basis on which to pull over anybody. In fact, the underlying law that it affected with a penalty enhancement has been in effect for 24 years, and in the last 7 years in Dallas County, a grand total of 1 person has been arrested. This bill is about human smuggling. It affects the penalties on convicted human smugglers, like the people who took 60 immigrants last year who died in the back of a truck. I worked with my Senate colleagues, including my Hispanic border Senate colleagues, to lower the penalty that was increased there. And thank goodness we did, because they couldn't kill it in the House. My position on immigration has been very clear. We do need a secure border, and we should be working with the federal government. I've been saying this for years, not against the federal government. It is absurd the way we have conducted ourselves. I accused the Senate Republicans of funding Greg Abbott's re-election campaign with border wall money. Not privately, publicly, on the floor. I think it's very easy to count on me on these issues. I will continue to advocate for smart policies, humane policies, good treatment of people, and secure borders.
Thank you. And Representative Niave Criado, you'll have 2 minutes to respond and expound on your position on SB4.
Thank you so much. And his whole excuse right now for voting for that bill shows exactly why he does not understand how his vote is harmful to brown and black people, as well as not just people of color, but any of us can now be charged. And let me explain why. I lead as the chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. We fought with everything that we had, and wrong, Senator, I personally killed that bill with a point of order when it was House Bill 800 in the Texas House. So go back and look at the record on that to correct you, sir. That vote is one of the most terrible votes that he could have taken. Governor Abbott, it is a racial profiling bill, and the fact that he keeps denying that shows that he does not understand the impact to us. 2, Governor Abbott specifically weaponized this smuggling statute because before, a judge had the judicial discretion to determine whether you have a real smuggling case or not. Now, any law enforcement in Texas can pull any of us over, whether you're an American citizen or not, and charge you with this smuggling for driving somebody who is undocumented. Civil rights groups have held and testified all year long about how this is a racial profiling bill. We understand the impact because it's going to be our community who is pulled over, and we're working with law enforcement and hoping that some police departments do not enforce this bill, but we are back to 2017, and if he cannot understand that Governor Abbott weaponized this specific statute for a reason, he cannot represent this newly diverse district. We fought with everything that we had because we know if we're driving somebody to the street. In 2017, we had immigration informationals when Trump became president, when Governor Abbott was pushing an SB4 bill back then. Parents concerned about being separated from their children if they are arrested or deported.
Thank you. And Senator Johnson, you'll have 30 seconds to respond on that.
Sure. If this is a racial profiling bill today, it's been a racial profiling bill for 24 years. Again, this statute had to do with the penalty. Is my opponent saying that it was fine to have a racial profiling bill when the judge had discretion about how long to put him in jail? Racial profiling is okay as long as you don't have to go in the slammer for too long? No. I think you have to ask yourself questions about whether or not people are representing things to you honestly. This is for convicted human smugglers, not driving someone to the store, because the elements of the statute are you are driving someone for the purpose of evading arrest. I think my time is up. That's a short 30.
Yeah. And you did mention Representative Niave Criado. So
I didn't say anything about her, though.
I want to give her 30 seconds to respond to that.
Thank you so much. House Democrats overwhelmingly voted against that bill because we understand that is the day that you see viral videos of our colleagues being passionate about this, because we know the impact on our community. It is why we must fight with everything that we have in the Texas Senate. We have to have a fighter, not somebody who does not understand the impact of that or caves to Dan Patrick in certain circumstances. His excuse right now just confirms that we're doing the right thing because he does not understand the impact on people of color.
Thank you. She did mention you, and that was the rule. So you do have 30 seconds.
I don't
to
need
respond
30.
to that.
If she thought this was a racial profiling bill, I want to know why in 4 sessions in office she never did anything about it until it became politically advantageous to do so.
Governor Abbott just weaponized this specific statute to be used against people of color. He made this his priority bill. Why do you think it passed? He pushed it in a special session. We were able to kill it in the House. I killed it with the point of order, as I mentioned. That statute was not weaponized until now by Governor Abbott, and you see everything that he is doing, using words like invasion, which are hateful against Latinos, that drove a person from North Texas to kill brown people at a Walmart in El Paso.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to the next question. This question is to Representative Niave Criado. In the 2019 legislative session, you cast a vote in favor of the so-called Born Alive bill in committee, allowing this bill to make it to the House floor and then pass the Texas House. In a statement released following this vote, you credited your Catholic faith as the rationale behind this vote. So in future legislation involving abortion rights, where will you draw the line between what is best for Texas women and your personal religious beliefs?
Thank you. And that committee vote was a committee vote and not a final vote. And I will say that I am 100% absolutely pro-choice, support our reproductive rights. It did not have to do with specifically a woman's right to choose. It dealt with medical treatment, but nonetheless, if that bill were to come back up, I would vote against it. But regardless of that, I have been a Planned Parenthood champion. All of my sessions in office, I have been recognized and endorsed by Annie's List. All of our sessions, we have fought day and night to protect our own reproductive rights. The fact that we have an attorney general terrorizing a woman, who has to fly to another state to obtain reproductive health care is not acceptable. We do everything that we can on the House through amendments, through bills, through points of order to fight with everything that we have to protect our right to choose. And I'm going to continue to do that as I have in the House and fight with everything that I have because we know that the impact that it has. This is an attack by Republicans to take away our choices because they want to control our ability to control our own destiny. We are rolling back. They're taking us back 50 years. We know that women have fought for generations and marched in the streets for us to have the right to choose, and I'm going to continue to fight with everything that I have for our community because we know what's at stake. There was data that just came out that showed that there have been more than 26,000 pregnancies as a result of rape. That study just came out a few days ago, and imagine the rape survivors who were not just traumatized once, but now have been traumatized again by being taken away their choice whether to have an abortion or not. That is not acceptable. We understand the reality and what it means for us to be able to have the right to choose. I helped organize with Dallas women's marches for years so that we can highlight and thank you.
Senator Johnson.
It was House Bill 16, and it was a bill to persecute abortion doctors, and it was a bill to perpetuate and advance the attack on abortion rights. It's not the only bill. There was a bill last session, Senate Bill 24, the Republicans renaming their ugly alternatives to abortion program to this Thriving Texas Families program. And it had some nice things in there. It sprinkled some money in for pregnant mothers. It also disparaged and attacked the whole concept of abortion. It also banned anybody who provided in the program from even talking about not just abortion. It banned them from talking about contraception. And it encouraged family formation so that you could be a participating provider if your sole mission was to tell a young pregnant woman, go get married. This was part of the mindset, of the narrative, of the propaganda being pushed by the far religious right to wipe out permanently people's right to choose, women's right to have an abortion. I didn't vote for it. My opponent voted against it appropriately, but then saw fit to change her vote in the record and say, I was recorded as voting no, but I meant to vote yes. Meanwhile, I filed 4 bills last session because I take this stuff seriously. I filed a bill to legalize abortion, medicated abortion under FDA rules. I filed a bill to get rid of the pre-Roe abortion statutes. I filed a bill to make sure that anyone who helps a woman leave the state to obtain abortion care cannot be prosecuted. And I filed a bill to block these stupid abortion travel bans being enacted by local counties. That is a serious commitment to abortion rights. There's one of us who is, there's one of us who isn't.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. And Representative Criado, you'll have 30 seconds to respond on that.
Thank you. This vote is the same vote that's being used against Representative Julie Johnson. And let me tell you how this is such a stretch, because this particular bill, I am a member of the Women's Health Caucus. Our chair, Donna Howard, also voted for this bill. This was a strategic move because this particular bill, when it got to the House, had funding specifically tied to a bill by State Representative Tony Rose to get 12 months of Medicaid expansion for pregnant moms in Texas. It had other funding that was at risk, and it was a strategic vote with our Women's Health Caucus.
Thank you. The next question will be for Senator Johnson. Polling suggests that in addition to immigration and abortion access, inflation and the economy is a top issue in the minds of Texas voters. So in your upcoming term, what are some realistic and kitchen table solutions that you believe you can accomplish to ease the burden of rising housing and cost of living?
You want politicians to be realistic. Okay.
I know.
Okay. First of all, when we're talking about economic growth, we got to recognize 2 things. Texas economy is going to grow. It will grow. The forces are with us. The question is, how is it going to grow? Is it going to grow equitably, or are we going to have an exploitive economy? So what are the kind of things that we can do to make sure that we grow in the right way? I mean, some things don't sound like economic, but they really are, like Medicaid expansion. We would create, I think it was 238,000 jobs. And they would be jobs in healthcare. They would be jobs where we're actually getting paid to take care of one another and lead better lives. Medicaid expansion is an economic driver. It actually is a net revenue positive just to state and local governments, and it brings down your property taxes. That's one way we need to grow our economy. We also need to make sure that out in the energy sector, as we're building the grid of the future, billions and billions of dollars are coming in here for renewable power. And if we don't preserve the ability for Texas to be a leader in renewable energy, we're throwing away jobs, good, high-paying jobs. These are distinguished from Governor Abbott's plan to take reserve officers, state National Guards, and put them down at the border and play Candy Crush on their cell phones outside of a private ranch. That's not very productive because they're not home doing their job. That is a waste of money. So we got to think about ways that we spend money. The economy's going to grow, but we need to make sure that it grows in ways that help people. How about education? Look, we all know that when you spend money as a government, it generates economic activity. Teachers are barely making it. If they were making more money, they would spend more money, which would generate more taxes, which means we wouldn't be as reliant on property taxes, which means we might not have recapture. We need to be thinking every step of the way. How about tax breaks? Let's touch that. I have an article in Maybe Outside where I attacked the $18 billion tax break that I voted for. It was great. We can afford a tax break. Did we need $18 billion? Is there something more productive we could do, like water infrastructure with maybe $6 or $8 billion of it? We need to make smarter investments with state money that have a return. Thank you.
Thank you. And Representative Niavi-Criado, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. I want to talk about education and then housing. One, education is the key. We know that if we graduate students college ready or ready to enter the workforce, that is going to impact our Texas economy. And so we need to make sure, as I mentioned before, that we invest in our schools, that we fight against Governor Abbott's voucher scams, that we raise teacher pay, and that we give the students every resource that they need to be able to go to college, that we make college free or affordable. That's one clear way. We also need to raise the minimum wage. It's $7.25. People are unable to put food on the table with making so little money. We need to raise it to at least $15 an hour. In addition, housing, right now, there are so many families in this district. This district spans everywhere from Pleasant Grove, where I grew up, Box Springs, Mesquite, part of Dallas. It comes up here to Richardson. It goes to Oak Cliff, Irving, Grand Prairie. It goes all the way down to the Sand Branch area, where we have people who they have no drinking, running water, which is essentially living like in a third world country and is shocking. And so we're going to be digging into policies to help the Sand Branch community as well. But the fact is that there are so many families in our district that are living paycheck to paycheck. Over 50% of the residents of the district live in our renter-occupied housing. There was a bill in the House and a bill in the Senate to try to take away local government's right to give tenants a few extra days to pay your rent so that you're not evicted under these strict statutes. We fought in the House to try to kill that legislation that was against tenants, and Nathan Johnson voted for that Senate version of that bill against the interest of the residents of this district.
Thank you. Senator Johnson, you'll have 30 seconds.
Very good. Actually, I forgot to mention affordable housing. It's important, and I've actually one of the only people who have passed the bills. Somebody came to me recently and said, I want to support you. I'd never met him. I said, why? He said, well, I work in affordable housing with community development corporations. And as far as we can tell, you're the only legislator who has actually taken a serious interest in affordable housing. You've passed legislation, you've worked with the Texas Department of Housing, and you filed a bill to try to increase the stock of affordable housing. As for a vote on the eviction laws, if you take a look at what causes homelessness, it's not 3 days to pay your rent. It's poverty, it's high prices, and it's lack of social services. Those are areas where I really am helping. Time's up.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is going to go to Representative Niave Criado. And in July, Texas Monthly published an interview with Representative John Bryant where he emphasized the importance and need for bold leadership from legislators and talked about the lack of focus from members on regaining a majority. Do you believe that it is the responsibility of a Democrat in a safe seat to assist other Democrats running across the state? And if so, tell us about a time that you helped a Democrat that was working to flip a seat in the legislature.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for raising that question. And he's right, we need bold leadership. We need to be standing up at every juncture, and when we are under attack in times like this. And I'm honored to have Representative Bryant's endorsement as well as Representative Ana Maria Ramos and a long list of other colleagues and local elected officials as well for our campaign. This district is now a safe seat. It's no longer a swing seat. From the very time that I was elected, have helped candidates to try to flip seats and do everything that we can to drive up the Democratic vote. Even last election, we had a libertarian opponent that people may not see as viable. We still ran a full field campaign, mail, digital, to voters to try to drive up the vote so that we can get people to help the top of the ticket as well from candidates that were running statewide. We all have to work together as Democrats, and after these elections, we all have to come together as well to try to get whoever our Democratic nominee is going to be to run against Ted Cruz. And the fact is, we need people who are going to inspire the next generation of people to turn out to vote. We need to ensure that we are bringing in Latinos into the Democratic Party, people of color into the Democratic Party, and let them know that we're fighting for them and not voting against their interest or for racial profiling legislation that is harmful. People are not going to want to turn out for somebody like that. I am honored and have worked hard. I have worn out my shoes knocking on doors to turn out voters in our district and for other candidates. And in Mesquite that we overlap with, we just flipped 2 seats of 3 that we were trying to flip on the Mesquite City Council. We just elected the first African-American person ever in Mesquite City Council's history, as well as the first Latina ever to Mesquite City Council. And that's the investment and time that I bring in helping other candidates flip seats as well.
Thank you. Senator Johnson.
Thank you. Having flipped a seat myself against Don Huffines back when people thought that couldn't happen, and we won by 8 points, largely because of engaged people like you, I do appreciate the value of gaining the Democratic Party's strength, not by turning against each other, but by taking Republican seats away. That's why last session, when I did have a Republican challenger, but this is a safe seat. It's 65-35. I think if I have a pulse, I would have won the election. But I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to turn out the vote anyway, including many tens of thousands of dollars devoted specifically to a Latino turnout project. So we can figure out, how do we reach people? How do we help people have their voice heard? It's absolutely critically important. Why was I spending all that money when I didn't really need to? Because I wanted Beto O'Rourke to be the next governor. Because I wanted to flip all sorts of seats. Because I want the Democratic brand to be the brand of strength that people turn to because they trust us to rule with compassion and vision and competence. So every effort that I make is geared towards that. And I get calls from people all around this state saying, how'd you do it? And I say, luck, partly luck, and partly because you've got to know how to communicate with people that gives them confidence that you are the one who can flip that seat. You got to make them know it's possible, you got to let them know it's necessary, and you got to know that you'll be effective when you're there. I will devote my time to any candidate who wants to flip a seat, to offer what I can, based on my experience both as a candidate and within the legislature, to help them flip that seat. I will help anybody turn out voters. I will myself and have myself knocked doors in every part of the district because it's critical. We cannot sit around in the minority, and we can't sit around and just wait for the Republicans to lead on substantive issues. So one of the ways we flip seats is demonstrate that we are the ones who can fix education and the grid and the water infrastructure and health care. That's how we flip seats.
Thank you, Senator. And Representative, you'll have 30 seconds to rebuttal on that.
Thank you. And we have consistently overperformed in our district because we talk to a lot of people that feel like they have been left out of this political process. And we're going to continue to do that because we know that every single vote matters in the House, especially, and every single vote matters in the Senate. And we have to inspire people to turn out to vote, and that's what we're going to continue to do, knocking on doors, talking to voters that are not included in mail programs, and have been ignored by the democratic process and have been ignored for years.
Thank you. The next question we have is going to be for Senator Johnson. What is the piece of legislation that you are most proud of championing in your time in the legislature, and what's one vote that you wish you could take back?
Strangely, as for the most proud, there's one that I passed and one that I didn't, so I want to mention two. One that I'm most proud of is one that's never passed. It's one of the 12 bills I filed to expand Medicaid in the state. The one that got the most traction, the one that at one moment had 76 co-signers in the House, where Julie Johnson carried it for me in the House and did a great job getting all the Democrats on board, of course, but also getting Republicans to sign on too. That was Medicaid expansion. It was a comprehensive, we call it an 1115 waiver, where we get permission from the federal government to structure our Medicaid expansion in a way that draws maximum support. And in this case, it allowed employers to participate. It allowed the individual recipients in the expansion population to contribute themselves. It had health counseling programs built into it. It had work counseling, not work requirements. It was a great program. And it was hard for anybody to vote against it, but for the ridiculous ideology. I think we almost got it. We just happened to have slammed into brick walls at the top levels, which is why I also found a way around that and passed a bill with a Republican in the House who cares about health care, who wouldn't have voted for Medicaid expansion, but we did pass a bill that brought down $1 billion in federal subsidies every biennium and is estimated to have brought health insurance to around 200 to maybe 300,000 low-income Texans like those in Senate District 16. So there's a bill I passed, a bill I didn't pass, but since I still have some time.
And the second part of that question was, what's one vote that you wish you could take back?
Oh, vote I wish I could take back. There's probably a few. I'm not perfect. We go through 1,000 bills or so every session. There was one about architectural materials that I'm not sure about. I don't have glaring votes that I wish I could take back. I wish there were votes where I could give speeches before I take the vote so people would understand them. But I have a fantastic staff, and we stay up late at night before every floor session and try to cast the right vote. I won't always get it right, and we won't always agree with each other. But I don't have any that I feel really deeply wrong about.
Yeah, time. Thank you. Representative?
I'm most proud of our Lavinia Masters Act. That took years. It was a big omnibus bill, lots of experts coming together, and the fact that that legislation has now eliminated one of the rape kit backlogs in Texas means so much for, I know, the women who have had to go through the trauma of being raped and then waiting for years for their kits to get tested. And so that is the landmark piece of legislation that I'm most proud about. We also passed legislation relating to domestic violence this year, working in partnership with the Dallas Police Department, because intimate partner violence is one of the key reasons that women are getting murdered in Texas. In addition to our gun rights, hopefully we'll be talking about them. Happy to, I know there was a timer just.
Yeah, that's an error. I'm tracking it right here.
Okay, thank you. And so the legislation that we passed was inspired by a woman named Alessandra who was murdered by her boyfriend who had a history of intimate partner violence and she did not know. Our legislation creates a free database that anybody can access in partnership with DPS. It just went live and we're about to be publicizing that new website where it contains information about repeat offenders of individuals who have been convicted multiple times of stalking, aggravated assault, aggravated sexual assault, so that women are empowered, not just women, but anybody can be empowered to know whether the relationship that they're in, it would be healthy or not, but so that they have that information. That is the first of its kind in the country. The family is in partnership with the Dallas Police Department will be pushing this legislation to try to get it implemented across the state. And so those are the types of issues. I've also passed legislation to extend the statute of limitations for sexual harassment cases in a Republican-led legislature. That is not something that is easy. It also took multiple sessions. So a lot of these issues on domestic violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment are bills that I'm very proud of because I know the impact. We have over 200,000 domestic violence reports every single year, and we know those are just the ones that are reported, but there are way more than that. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I know that the time, it got a little mixed up because of the clock.
Okay, thank you.
That's time. And then Senator Johnson, you'll have 30 seconds. Can we make sure we got that on the clock? There we go. You'll have 30 seconds.
I yield my 30 seconds to my opponent so she can answer the second half of the question.
Well, you mentioned her, and she'll have 30 seconds now, so that's fair. So,
thank you. And apparently you have a clean voting record because you regret no votes. The vote that I do regret is the Born Alive vote. And so as we look back and we know what Republicans are doing, and so that's why we fight every single day in the Texas House, and we'll continue to do so because we know the impact on our bodies, our rights we have to protect our rights at every turn. And so I'm going to continue as a woman, as a member of the Women's Health Caucus, and we're going to continue to fight if we have any additional special sessions where we have to fight to restore abortion rights here in Texas.
Thank you. And I've got some great news. We are going to have time for closing statements. But before we do that, we're going to do a really quick little segment of some rapid fires that aren't going to, they're 5 words or less is what we'd like, kind of like these answered in, just to try to pin you down on where you're at on some issues. So we've got 6 rapid fires I want to run through you. That question originally started at Nathan Johnson, so we're going to move this one to Victoria Niave. So the first question on the rapid fire is, do you support a moratorium on charter schools?
Yes.
Senator Johnson?
I filed a bill to throttle the growth on charter schools.
Thank you. Senator Johnson, do you support a ban on drag shows or drag story hours at community libraries?
No.
Representative?
No, and Nathan was one of 2 senators to vote present, not voting on an LGBT discriminatory
That's
bill.
not the question.
Mentioning
If
him
we want to
is-
have a
hang on.
speech about this, we
Mentioning
can
him
do
is
it.
going to give him 30 seconds. So we need to set a clock at 30 seconds on that. Sorry.
Okay. If we're talking about LGBTQ rights, we can note the fact that I've filed 8 bills in 3 sessions to make sure that we have equal treatment under the law for the LGBTQ community, including restoring the right to gay marriage because it's still illegal under Texas law. And when Roe fell, we're worried about the right to gay marriage is going to fall. That's why I filed the bill. Repealing the ban on sodomy, all sorts of bills. She's filed 0. As far as a PNV, I voted with probably the single greatest champion in the legislature on LGBTQ rights, Jose Menendez, so we can expose the Republican hypocrisy. I'm going to take them down by their own arguments. We should never have had that bill up.
And you mentioned Representative Niave, so you're going to have 30 seconds on that.
Thank you so much. And I'm not even sure that that was a clear excuse or reason for why you didn't stand up for LGBTQ rights when we know our LGBTQ community is under attack. That bill that he voted PNV, which is not standing up, was filed by one of the most extreme senators, Mays Middleton. That's not acceptable. We have to fight for our LGBTQ community at every step of the way, our transgender community, because we know that they are under attack, and he has not done that.
Thank you. Okay, let's keep this one rapid fire, guys. Next question goes to Representative. What's your favorite TV show?
This part, I love Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
But I know it's not a TV show. But.
Senator Johnson, what's your favorite TV show?
What's the soccer one?
Ted Lasso?
Ted Lasso.
Okay, there you
I don't watch a lot of TV.
Loves it a lot, apparently. Okay, next question to Senator Johnson. Should sitting members campaign against Republican colleagues?
Against Republican colleagues?
Mm-hmm.
As in, should a Democrat challenge a Republican?
No, should you actively campaign against your legislative colleagues that are Republicans?
Oh, should I be endorsing a Democrat who's running against a seated colleague?
Yes.
I don't know. I've never really thought. I think not. I think that we have to work with our members, and if you want to be effective, that's not a very effective way to go. When you're at the top levels, maybe.
Okay. And Representative Corretto, should members campaign against Republican colleagues?
Absolutely, yes. If you have Republicans who are... Thank you.
Okay. Representative, do you support the death penalty? Representative? Oh, sorry. Yes.
I have big issues with the death penalty. I believe it's government-sanctioned murder. I understand that there are circumstances where some families feel like that is the justice that they need, and so it depends.
Okay. And Senator Johnson?
I don't think it can be equitably applied, so no.
Okay. And then Senator Johnson, who is your political hero?
Abe Lincoln.
Representative?
Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Okay. And then the last one, Representative Criado, will do that one to you. Should we raise the age to purchase assault weapons to 21?
Yes, and we fought all year long. Nathan Johnson voted with Republicans to block that amendment when it came up in the House, in the Senate.
And Representative Johnson, you'll get to respond to that, and we're going to put 30 seconds on the clock.
Senator Johnson will do so. Yeah, I support it. That's why I joint authored a bill to do so. The Democrats in the Senate put together an omnibus bill where we supported the whole panoply of gun safety legislation, including raising the age to 21. I never voted with Republicans to keep an amendment. That's why 10 of the 12 Democrats voted the same way I did. The amendment was already off. This was about the institutional rules of germaneness. It gets into issues, but they're the same rules I used to kill Republican bills, including the following week when I did. There's no question where we are on gun safety.
Thanks.
We are all in favor.
Time. Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Can I respond to that?
I
Because
didn't hear him mention your name.
He mentioned the vote, I mean, which is what, and I had a few seconds.
I'm sorry. The rule was if they mentioned their name. I'm sorry. But the good news is we have closing statements. And so we'll get to go to closing statements now. The opening statement started with Representative Niave Criado, and so we'll start closing statements with Senator Nathan Johnson. 2 minutes.
You send us down there with a mission to represent you well. When I beat Don Hoffens, I promised 2 things. I would fight like hell against the Republican right-wing drift that's pulling us off the table, that could jeopardize, actually ruin the beautiful future this state could have, and that I would find ways to meet the needs of the people in this district and this state. You've got to do both of those things. My fighting is notorious around the Capitol. People tune in to see what I'm going to say on the floor, and I get in trouble all the time, but I still manage, despite getting in trouble, despite writing articles lambasting what the right is doing, and they're in the Dallas Morning News. Whether it's Medicaid expansion or the way the session was conducted or these ridiculous special sessions or their abortion rules, I go after them all the time. But I've also passed about 100 bills in 3 sessions. I passed almost 50 bills last session, and they matter. How do I know they matter? If your baby doesn't go deaf next year because of a bill I passed to get cytomegalovirus testing that wasn't previously available, that wasn't part of the ordinary routine for newborns, if you have running water when the transformers go down, it matters to you. If you have a loved one with Alzheimer's and they get better treatment, or a teen who's suicidal who has a new tier of mental health care, it matters to you. If you're involved in construction or banking, it matters to you that I can pass commercial bills. That's part of our job. And if we can't do both of those things, we're never going to flip the state. We've got to convince people that we are going to work with compassion and empathy and curiosity to understand things like geothermal hydrogen battery power. Yep, it matters. All that stuff matters. I want to go down there and keep working on the stuff that I've started because we're making progress. And if you give me your vote, I promise I will. And in so doing, we will grow the strength of the Democratic Party. We won't be playing defense. We will be building our vision for the future of this state. Thank you so much for being engaged.
Thank you. And wrap it up, Representative Niave Criano.
Thank you so much. The Uvalde families would come every single week to lobby for one issue. That was to raise the age to purchase an assault rifle to 21, because the mass shooter that went into their school waited till he was 18 to purchase an assault rifle. Every Democratic House members, we fought and made that legislation a priority, advocating every single day so they could get a hearing and so they can get a vote. So the fact that, with all due respect, that vote came up in the Senate and he blocked it, and that amendment was germane to the underlying bill, is a slap in the face to those families and to everybody. It doesn't matter if it came up later, it didn't. The fact is that was an opportunity to have a vote on the raise the age amendment to 21. Every single vote matters when we are under attack by this governor, when we are under attack by the lieutenant governor, by Dan Patrick. We understand the urgency of the votes, the urgency of the fight. I have been able to deliver landmark legislation for the women of Texas on multiple issues, have fought for our LGBTQ community. I have fought as a chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus against Governor Abbott's attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is now a bad word, apparently, in the Republican Party. And we have to continue to fight with everything that we have. That is my commitment to the constituents, to the voters of this district. And we're going to fight all the way because we know what's at stake. And there is a difference between who understands the urgency and the crisis of the times and who doesn't. And so I'd be honored to earn your vote. We're going to do everything that we can to flip this state. And just as we flipped this district and ran then against an incumbent who voted against the interests, we're going to continue to work hard to do that again. Thank you.
And a round of applause for your candidates for state senate. Thank you guys so much for taking time out to come out today. Thank you to the Richardson area Democrats for letting me be a part of this. And a quick shameless plug for the Texas Democratic Party and your local county parties. Regardless of who wins elections, your Democratic Party is here putting in work to try to make sure we're electing Democrats all across the state. So please consider supporting your local Democratic clubs and county parties. So thank you all so much for coming out today.
Thank you guys for being so attentive. Thank you to the candidates for your great answers, and to Kendall for your great moderating. Thank you so much. Now, before you guys walk off the stage, I want to see how effective you were. Not to put you on the spot, but how many people were swayed by this conversation that didn't already feel, how many people feel differently now than you did when you came in? How many people stuck with what they knew and are solid on who they were supporting? Okay, one more question. Thank you, guys. How many people still don't know who you're going to vote for? Well, there you go. You've done your work. Thank you so much.